All right. So yeah, thank you all for joining in and having a watch on my talk today. Also, thank you, Matthias, for inviting me. Today's talk, my talk, will be about world building with ComfyUI and Stable Diffusion for VFX artists. Enhanced, not replaced. The thing is, a lot of people are recently a bit in fear, also respective upcoming tools like Sora, where it seems like somebody types something in and then all of a sudden we have like puppies playing in the snow with perfect hair simulation and so on. But the real thing about AI created imagery is that what we as VFX artists want to have is control, I would say, and therefore ComfyUI is the perfect starting point. I just jump in right into ComfyUI for you guys. So this is the interface of ComfyUI. You see basically what is ComfyUI? ComfyUI is a AI image generative interface, which is taking Stable Diffusion models, which are also like for the image generation. And you can basically type in whatever you want. For example, red house on a hill, add starry night, Van Gogh, and all of a sudden we have a red house on a hill in like slightly the style of Van Gogh. This is just for you to get a quick overview about what is ComfyUI. You already see it's like working instantly. So whatever I'm typing in here, it like right away shows us a change, even a spacebar, okay? But an S, for example, changes it to something else. And this is good. Like this is a special Stable Diffusion model. It's called Stable Diffusion XL Turbo, and it's like working in real time. And this is good for if somebody wants to dive in to like prompting in the first place to understand how does this prompt like translate to the AI program. By the way, this is all working locally on my machine, so no restrictions regarding like the image count you can generate, because it's just like your graphic cards which gives you the restrictions. And this one is a pretty powerful one with the 3090 RTX NVIDIA. So yeah, this is pretty it's just fun to play around with it. But yeah, as you see, we have a node-based interface. This is the most basic setup you can have. We have a checkpoint loader. This loads basically the AI the training data in the training model, in this case, as I said, Stable Diffusion Turbo XL. From here, we go to our two prompts, a positive and a negative prompt. This time, the negative one is like, I didn't fill in anything. It's just a positive prompt I just showed you. And here, this is the engine. That's what's under the hood. Here, the training data gets basically translated into, combined with our prompt. It gets translated into our image, which we have here. And just for presentation, you see this is like generating in no time, like thousands of images if you want so. And what we are going to do today is how can learn how can this help us as VFX artists, for example, to get into a better, get faster into our layout, or can be able to talk more profound about what the client wants from us on an early layout stage already. So yeah, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself because I was a bit like hyper. And I'm Arne Palluck, and I am I worked in the VFX industry for roughly 7 years, for five to 7 years now. I started with commercial work, and later I went on to layout. I worked as a layout artist for big studios such as Scanline or Jellyfish. One of my most fun project, I would say, was Star Wars. And also from the layout perspective, I'm gonna now to show you how can ComfyUI help us to build better or faster layouts. And therefore, I have prepared a different workflow here. It's also not too much of a deal. It's also still pretty basic, and I just gonna show you what we can achieve with that one. So first of all, what I want to show you, how can we translate now these images into a 3D program, such as Blender, for example. And therefore, I am creating a basic thing. What I usually did before without AI, this would be, I want to have, I don't know, I'm having a car animation, cars driving through a city, drifting around corners, and so on. And for the buildings, yeah, you can also obviously go to Quixel and load in like 3D models. But if you want to be like a bit resource oriented and say like, oh, I don't need like full 3D models for that, I would go to textures.com and would grab one of these buildings and would load it into Blender. And I would like extrude, for example, for the windows, I would extrude a square. And so it gets like slightly a bit of 3D feeling to it. And this is actually oftentimes enough when we are, I don't know, with a Mustang drifting around a corner and we just have like the car and the world behind and motion blurred. This usually works. But today I'm showing you how we can achieve the same thing with our ComfyUI. So I have loaded in a 3D and an AI image generative model, in this case DreamShaper XL Lightning. It's a very fast one. And in this case, I want to have like my facade. This is the prompt I have for my facade. Basically, these numbers are just giving us an idea of how important it is for us that this is, for example, flat. 1.2 is like a bit in hand, a bit higher importance than other things. Then level city facade, texture with sidewalk, first floor from front is important for me, as we want to have something like that. I want to have it flat from front. Window shops, perfect symmetry. This I learned by using the other one, the turbo one. I could figure out pretty fast what I want to have here exactly. And if we would just queue this prompt and let's just make it, you see we are already getting a pretty nice facade. And I'm just, so okay, I will just change this value here. All right, so we have our facade. What can we do with that now? We want to have, because we want to have depth to it. And this is like where ComfyUI already comes in pretty handy. Sorry. Okay, all right. Now it's working again. Where ComfyUI comes in pretty handy, as it understands this image and already also understands it from a 3D viewer's point of view, and it gives us out a depth map. So what we can do with that, we can jump into Blender. Let's just let ComfyUI generate a few more of these. We can jump into Blender and let's import this image ComfyUI just generated for us, the first one. And now we take our depth map to give it like a more 3D kind of look. So what we're going to do is we first have to give our plane a bit of more geometry, more polygons. So I will give a subdivision surface modifier. So now it's like under the hood, it has like, I don't know, yeah, you see it, like it has 200,000 faces now. So this might be enough. And I give it a displacement modifier. And for the displacement, we will use our cool depth map we just created. Here we go. And now you can see we have, without further ado, a pretty cool 3D model of a facade, which obviously doesn't work as a hero model if this would be the facade of the kid who's like the main character in our movie, who's going out of the door every once in a while, but it works as a facade far in the background. And we have like we have also, as I already mentioned, our windows go out, and yeah, this is, I think, pretty cool. This is something you can achieve with that. You also can use your own photos, of course. So you can also, if you go and make photos of a facade or whatever, I could also take the ones like from textures.com, for example, just to make my life more easy by letting AI understanding the depth of the image and then create a facade for me with one click. So just for you to understand what's happening here, we have our model, as I said, our AI image generation model, Dreamshaper XL in this case. We have our prompt. We have our sampler where everything gets combined. From here, we get our first image. I then gave it to an upscaler. So we have like a bit of more sharpness there. And these upscalers themselves are already pretty darn good, I would say. For example, I already implemented it in my workflows when I'm rendering something in 3D and I want to have some 4K imagery, like doing it with like rendering it in 1090 in full HD and then upscaling it by 4 to 4K works pretty good. So this is something I wanted to show you. So the next thing, the technique I just showed you with the facades, we can use the same technique to let ComfyUI generate us a 3D scene. I already generated one before but I can still load in the 3D scene how I would do it, ComfyUI. So the next thing would have generated a whole scenery. In this case, this one here, you will see it in a second. This one here. This is, at this point, this one is generated with ComfyUI with a certain prompt. This one here, just let me fix this all a bit. And here we can do the same thing. We can subdivide the surface, boom, put that to simple, add a displacement modifier, and we use our displacement which ComfyUI generated for this, and this is where it gets impressive. And like for me at least, I was pretty impressed by what ComfyUI is capable of there. Open, or Stable Diffusion to be exact, and let's take it to UV, just like that, and make it. Here we are. So now we have a 3D generated scene just out of an image, taking the depth map ComfyUI gave us. And you see, like when I'm sliding with my camera from the left to the right, we have a nice parallax in here, and we have already a pretty good representation of what this scene might look like in 3D, because it is 3D actually. And you see, as soon as we go out of the image and look from here, for example, of course, the AI doesn't know, at least the depth map can't represent what's happening, like if I'm looking from the top, for example, but it's still a pretty good representation from here. So again, this is now a AI generated scene, but we, as the control of AI image generation, like still is like not to the highest level. We can here also use, for example, what our concept artist gave us to go the next step in layout and say, okay, our concept artist, and let's just pretend this is what our concept artist gave us, and we put this in here, and we have a first pretty good representation of what the scene will look like in 3D. And the next thing would be, let's block out the scene with actual 3D models. Usually in an early stage of layout, you would literally use blocks for assets you don't have, or you would use some proxy assets. But in this case, we also could go in here and take and we can generate 3D assets out of it. But I have already prepared other 3D models just to show you, or I can now show you the workflow, what would happen next. So while we wait, we would have our prompt. In this case, I want to have, for example, for this scenery, I want to now fill it with houses. So I want to generate houses, and it would be cool if it would give me a bunch of houses, like 50 houses in 5 minutes or something. So what we would do is I designed this prompt here. Because it's an XL model, you really can go with like floating text, where you can like tell the AI how, what you want to have by just describing the scene, just as if you would talk to a real person. And in this case, for our house, I've written something like, imagine a charming 2-story house designed in the spirit of the Pokemon universe, centered as whimsical structure in the frame, standing proudly isolated with a clear-cut view against a transparent background. The reason I want to have this clear-cut view, you will see in a second, is because when this goes down the pipe, we want to remove the background from our isolated house. For the program later to generate our 3D model out of it, it is important that it's the full view, fully in frame, the image. We want to have a 3D model out of it, because then the AI is best to understand what might happen also around all of this. The next thing, as I said, would be I give it the image which it will be generated. I give it to this remove background node. The remove background node by itself understands what is hero element and what is background of the image. Again, also a use case, not just like for image generative AI or 3D generative AI, but also like for comping, for example. These tools will enhance more and more. In this case, for example, they are already way more powerful than, for example, I don't know, the roto brush tool from After Effects when I used it back 2 years ago or something. And this is, without further ado, it's just like really, I say remove background and it understands what I want to have. And yeah, then I will take the model which has its background removed. It will go to this Tripo SR sampler. This thing here is basically taking the image with the removed background, tries to understand how it looks like, and generates a 3D mesh out of it. What you see here is geometry resolution 256. This is pretty low. The reason I'm using a low one is because I wanted to show you just fast how fast this can generate 3D elements once it's loaded. And this is, as I said, it takes 2 seconds or 3 seconds for one 3D object to generate. And the mesh is already like in a pretty good shape. The only thing which isn't solved by a node yet, but I have written a little script for Blender for that, is it gives it the 3D object no texture, but it gives it a vertex color. So basically the texture is directly connected to every face, you can say. So the less the face count of the model is, the less detailed the texture will be. But this is no problem, as the model is an exact representation of the image we get. So we can project the image we generate in a step before directly onto the 3D model, and it will fit perfectly. Yeah, as this is basically what Tripo SR took to generate the 3D object in the first place. So we can also use a low resolution, as I said, because it's first of all faster. Second of all, in the end, we don't want to use the vertex color, but we want to use our projections. And as it's still loading, I can show you just how these objects look like when they come out of ComfyUI. File import. Those are OBJs for now. And so this is the result of like these 140 3D models I will load in a second, and it will be there in 2 seconds or something. Is the result of maybe 5 minutes or 2 to 5 minutes of ComfyUI doing its work. I created a little script therefore to first of all distribute them so we have a better overview. We have now here, you can see the houses it created and more. As I said, this is not textured yet. It has the vertex color still applied to the OBJ. I just have to activate it. So in my script, oops, I also have this little funky thing which gives all of them the same material. And now I just have to go in here and give it the color attribute node. And now you see it, they all are textured. But you see those houses here are at this low resolution, but we just need these houses in the first place anyway, just at a low resolution, because we don't want to have our full production based on AI generated stuff, but we want just have a representation of what the concept artist, for example, might have drawn, just so we get a better feeling. How would it feel in the scene, like this spaceship the concept artist drew? Let's just make a quick 3D model of it so we get a feeling for it. So the client also will know earlier in production where the journey is going to. So the hope there would be that a client and VFX studio would be able to understand way faster what the different parties are up to and what they want and what they don't want. And therefore, I think this ComfyUI thing with this 3D image from 3D models from image is a pretty cool way to get there pretty fast. So yeah, I would have created a few houses, then a few trees. The trees I just would have created with a slightly different workflow to give you a more of an idea what this might be capable of. Therefore, I have this little paint node here, which is really just like less powerful than paint would be. And what I would do here, the checkpoint is loaded. So this I will show you this just real quick. What I would do here is I want to generate a tree. So, but I want the AI to orientate itself to how I want the tree to look like, because I don't want a generic tree. I want a tree which looks like my idea. So if we have, for example, our client, he says, look, I want to have a tree with an S-shaped stem here, or like with this, like this, something like this. And then we want to have a few leaves on the tree. Just make them bigger. Whoop. Just very rudimentary. So this is like how our client draws us the tree. Sometimes it might look like that. So this is the tree. Our client says, look, I want to have this special hero tree. Do you have some iterations how this might come out in 3D? Then I would say, okay, you said you want to have it in a, like maybe in a anime style. So I would write down anime studio Ghibli style tree. Actually, this is just what I write down, but I give the AI this image as an information. This denoise thing here is actually taking this image, and when this value is very low, for example at 0.7, and I give the AI this thing here to work with, then it spits me out basically an image which almost looks like our tree. Almost exactly. There are slightly differences, but really not noticeable. The higher the value gets, the less it orientates itself with the tree. The good thing is for example, when I want to have figures of people or something, but I don't want the AI to be too strict with I would just draw a stickman basically, but it would understand, okay, I want to have a stickman in a T-pose. So it would generate me also all the other figures in a T-pose, which is also, again, good for like just throwing them in on like some random rig onto them and then just let them walk with 2 or 3 clicks. And you see now the value is very high. So it's nothing compared to this tree. But when we are, for example, at a value of 769, so something like that, and just give this here, so we get our 3D object out of it. It now checks our image, generates something, and you see already the S shape already presents itself. We could go even lower. By the way, the image, the tree should be also done as well here for our scene, and just lower this value a bit. And let's see what it gives us now. Or even lower, because the lower the value gets, the closer we get to our image here. Yeah, you see this would be, for example, like a fitting value 0.5, and we get the base shape I wanted to have, but with a way more beautiful tree than I would have generated in this short amount of time. And this now, again, we could just grab and throw into our scene. So, and yeah, basically, I just wanted to present you a quick overview of how this image generative AI can give us in an early layout stage, like more freedom by, as I said, we get our concept arts, we can throw it in here. We have like just a first representation in 3D. It's nothing is textured there, or it has also like a very shitty topology, of course. I mean, we can just, I think you trust me there, but you see like this is way too much geometry there. It's like no good topology. It's far from perfect, but just for an early stage of layout, this might help us giving a client a very good idea of where the journey goes with our final film in the end. Yeah. So thank you for listening. If there are questions, I would love to answer them.
All right. Yeah, we do have some questions. By the way, I think your webcam was still off for the second part, so maybe you can quickly activate your webcam.
Yeah, let's.
First and foremost, obviously, thank you so much for the presentation. I do think we all got a very a good, brief, solid overview over what can be done and where the advantages obviously can also be in, let's say, more rapid iterations, eliminating some time in discussions. Cool. So let's jump into the questions. First one came from Mike. Can these same models be used as AI input further down the line to create more detailed output?
So he means, just so I get the question right, this already generated model, if we could take this or again further down the line. As far as I know, that I wouldn't say so, as I'm always updating my timeline and see like how far are we with TripoSR, for example, which in my opinion is at the moment the most powerful 3D generative tool for ComfyUI. And I have to say, no, at the moment we can't put this further down directly in ComfyUI. What we can do, I can show you really quick. It doesn't take long actually. I just open a new scene. What we can take is what I just said. We can load in our object. And in this case, let's take the last one here, the tree. And I made a little tool, as I said, and I project here the okay. I would project the image onto it, but I haven't saved it. The image is just as a preview image there. Unfortunately, I forgot to put in an image save note. But from there, I would have projected this onto that, so we would have at least have a bit of more detail without all this much of vertices. So we could then reduce the mesh again and just use then a textured image from this projection. With a tree, it works pretty well. If you just imagine, I would have just projected it onto that tree from this perspective. It would go through the mesh, and from this side, it would look exactly the same. But for the tree, all around, it's green, so it works pretty well. For a person, it would just obviously work from one side where you see his face. On the other side, on the back of his head, would be his face again. So would be a bit of funky.
Yeah, but I mean, kind of that's where the direction of in general of the technology. I mean, the question is pretty much straightforward, kind of with AI, with the stuff. How far can you go, right? And I mean, but it's pretty clear that you mentioned these are really fast iteration or tools for fast iteration and answer some questions quite early on. That are also art directable, but then to kind of go from this to the final super high quality model, that's the step everybody is afraid of, right?
Yeah,
but
it's just because this is also something I wanted to implement in the middle, where the thing is, yeah, you're right. This is the point where everybody is afraid of, but I think, and this is what I also wanted to show with this, is that to gain like control over AI, it needs a bit of more than just prompting something. But to gain the control, you need still to understand, for example, what is like this node-based workflow, which I don't think like the art director just grabs by himself and says like, oh, I don't need any VFX studio anymore because I now can do everything by myself. Because when you want to get like very precise with AI, this is very on the surface, what I just showed, but we can go precisely into the, at least in the image state, for example, and I want this exact same tree, but I want it with a cherry, just one cherry at a certain point, and I can design this workflow so I can get this exact cherry on exactly the same tree. So we have a good control over it, but we have to understand how it works. And then I don't see a difference between having the control in Nuke, for example, or having the control in ComfyUI. So the fear that somebody would grab ComfyUI and say like, now I'm doing everything myself and I don't need VFX artists anymore, would be as the fear that somebody would say like, oh yeah, they are now all using Nuke. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Let's quickly check time. So it's already 6. Let's take 2 more quick questions, and then potentially shift over to because there are more questions. You can answer those on Discord.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do Samuli's question. I got here a little bit late, so I would like to know the name of this node system / tool. So I guess that's already in the title of the presentation. That's ComfyUI, right? So yeah. I think this one is easily answered. Then what was the software that Arne was using to generate the 3D models? That's the same. Basically, it's from the same person, Aaron, actually.
Yeah, it's Tripo SR is the node. You can just really quick, when somebody decides to get ComfyUI is super fast installed. I think it's the most easy AI tool ever to install. You really can basically go on Google and go through a 2-minute tutorial, and you are up and running. And then you have this manager here, And then you can, for example, I can also share this exact workflow with you guys. You can load it in your ComfyUI, and ComfyUI will tell you which nodes you have to install afterwards, and then you can update. It would say here, for example, install missing custom nodes, and then you can install all these nodes. So it's a very user-friendly interface. Yeah.
No, that's super cool. Yeah, if somebody is interested in maybe getting an example, that would be amazing. So maybe you can organize this through Discord. Now,
yeah.
Basically the rest of the questions were very similar. That came through the questions tab. So I do have one more question. So what are just because I'm asking very naively, what are the costs, and where would I get ComfyUI?
So you can get ComfyUI. So just you can get ComfyUI on GitHub. So you type in download ComfyUI in Google, and you literally can download it, and it's with an installer. Like the GitHub page has a very good documentation how you get it running also. And what you also need for ComfyUI would be just to get started, would be a checkpoint model. And these you get at Civit AI. I can share the link on the Discord as well. And there you have a bunch of let's check. You have a bunch of images and a bunch of models there to load in. But sometimes the homepage is not working that fast. I mean, maybe because of a lot of traffic. But yeah, you can get the models on Civit AI. I will share the link in the Discord as well. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I think you might actually get some more questions over on Discord. And I would say let's do a 5-minute break. All right. Thank you so much, Arne.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and yeah, see you around.
Bye-bye.